Do you have a pick at number 7 to 12 in your fantasy drafts, or are you just curious who my rankings are beyond the top 6? Well, you came to the right video. Today's video, I'm going to be giving you the draft strategy on players you should be looking to draft in round 1, 2, 3 if you hold the pick 7 to pick 12 position in your draft. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. You guys are going to enjoy this video, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. So we are at number 7 pick in the draft. And if you didn't watch the first video, these are the first 6 picks based on my rankings, how I think the draft board will go. The other reminder is that I am using Yahoo ADP for the picks beyond the one in my draft. So if I pick 7, pick 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way to my next pick at 18 will all be based on Yahoo ADP. And then from 19 all the way back to 31 will all be based on Yahoo ADP because I can't predict what the draft board will look like. So we're at pick 7 in the draft, and if you recall from the last video, I said that pick 1 to 3 are set in stone. It's going to be between McDavid, McKinnon, Draisaitl. I think McDavid and McKinnon are the clear-cut 1-2, and then Draisaitl is the clear-cut number 3 pick in fantasy. So between pick 4 and pick 8, it's completely interchangeable. For me, I think Matthews, Makar, Kucherov is the way it should go. I have a lot of people talking about how Kucherov should be 3, and I think that's number 4, and I think that's completely fine with me. So I pick number 7. It's going to be between 2 players, Kaprizov and Pastrnak. I think I have some concerns with the Kaprizov injury history. When healthy, he could probably fit into the number 4 overall player in fantasy. We just really haven't seen a full 82 from him. So at pick number 7, it's going to be David Pastrnak of the Boston Bruins. And the reason being is he is coming off of his 3rd 100-plus point season in a row and 3rd season with 40-plus goals and 3rd season with over 315 shots on net. He had 400 just a couple of seasons ago. I know the Bruins team won't be as good as people are thinking. He still put up 106 points last year with half a season of McAvoy, half a season of Marchand, and the second most scoring player on their team being Morgan Geekie with 57 total points. So although the team was bad last year, Pastrnak still managed to be that elite top 10 player in fantasy, and I expect the same thing this season. So for this pick, for me, it's going to be David Pastrnak. Quickly jumping over to the 7th pick in the draft, you took David Pastrnak, so now you have 18th overall. So it gets a little dicey here because I think you're able to take a little bit more risk and grab Werenski at this pick. I also don't mind taking Connor Hellebuyck here. Now, I'm not keen for taking goalies early, but I think in leagues that have categories, so your wins, your saves, your save percentage, your goals against average, Connor Hellebuyck can be a very, very valuable pick at pick number 18. In some leagues, he finished as the number 1 overall player. I know in the FPPL, I think he might have been top 5 last season, but it's hard to have players and goaltenders especially replicate what they did. One simple injury to a goalie can affect them for the whole year. So because I don't take goalies here, I think your options are going to be between Sam Reinhart or Zach Werenski at this pick in the 2nd round. I also don't mind Forsberg as the 3rd one there, but because he's right winger, you could look to grab Sam Reinhart here. I do think some of this Florida offense will falter a little bit. I also don't mind looking at Philip Forsberg at this pick in the draft as well. But for this, because Pastrnak is such a safe pick, doesn't really have too much injury, very good goal, very good shot upside, I think the best pick here is going to be Zach Werenski. But just remember, there is injury history, and make sure you proceed with caution here. Moving on to pick number 31 in the draft. So again, I simmed everything based on the draft, the Yahoo ADP. So we're picking at 31, and we grab Pastrnak or Werenski. And at 31, I'll jump over to the projections. So here are the best available. We know that Tkachuk won't be drafted because he's out for 5 months. And I don't really have my eye on any of these key guys until I don't mind Stutzel, Tage Thompson, really like JT Miller, and Jake Gensel. That's kind of the grouping I'm looking at this part of the draft. And given you already took your number 1 defenseman at pick number 18, you don't have to worry about taking any of those big name defensemen at this point in the draft. Your focus now is to get another elite winger. Like I always say, you probably want to go forward, elite defenseman, and another forward in the top 3 picks of the draft. So I'll jump over to the draft pick analyzer, toss the players in, and we'll see what the best options come up with. Okay, so we have the draft pick analyzer here, and I tossed in two names. So I have Pastrnak for both, and then I added Werenski or Forsberg. So if you go Werenski here, you are edged out just slightly in points leagues by Forsberg, but again, you're drafting a defenseman instead of a forward, so obviously the points are going to be a little bit lower in both the totals for the points leagues and category leagues, but it just shows you kind of the options available here. But I do really think Werenski is completely fine at pick number 18. So now looking at 31, I'll toss in Tage Thompson, who I really like here, who has center right wing eligibility, very good goal upside to mix with Pastrnak, and you can tell the points are just really, really strong across the board for Tage. Now the other option I have is Jake Guentzel, and this slightly edges out Tage Thompson with the Forsberg Guentzel Pastrnak pick. Guentzel, very similar counting stats to Tage Thompson, as you can see, 41 goals, 36 goals. The points are relatively the same. Slight edge to Tage in the shot volume and the hits as well. I do think Guentzel could be in for a very, very strong season this season, playing alongside Nikita Kucherov for another full year. You just never know what's really going to happen with Kucherov in the point upside. But anyways, the other player I'd be looking to pick here, and because you're taking Pastrnak and Werenski, who basically have very similar counting stats, they have good goal upside, good shot upside. Obviously, Werenski has the block edge, is JT Miller, who I think is being criminally underdrafted this season. And when I toss him in here, if I drop Werenski down to the bottom here, you can see between Pastrnak, Werenski, Guentzel, and then Pastrnak, Werenski, and JT Miller, this group is slightly edged out in both the totals and then a little bit more significantly in the scoring categories as well. So I like JT Miller a lot at pick number 31. I've said this before earlier, is he was like a top 10 to 15 pick in the last couple of years of fantasy. They had a disaster situation over in Vancouver, but I think it's no reason to panic here with a new team on a very good power play in the New York Rangers. So I think my picks here are going to be between Guentzel, JT Miller, and Tage Thompson. At pick number 8, it's going to be Kirill Kaprizov. And I want to talk about Kaprizov a little bit. So on a per game basis, he is one of the best in the league, averaging 1.21 points per game since joining the league. He was on pace for well over 100 last season at a 1.34 points per game pace. On top of that, his shot volume is extremely, extremely good, over 3.5 shots per game. He plays a ton of minutes in the high offensive roles for the Minnesota Wild, averaging nearly 23 minutes per night last year, which is very, very elite for top-end forwards, and that's exactly what you want to see from guys who play workhorse minutes. They get all the highly offensive opportunities. Kaprizov has, on a per-game basis, the opportunity to easily be a top 3, top 4 player in fantasy. It's just a matter of if you get him for the full 82 games. Now, we're definitely not projecting him for a full 82. If you do, this pick number 8 is going to pay off pretty big dividends for you. It's just a matter of if he can play the full 82. And I did have a Hart bet for him last year, and there was a time in the season where he was the leader for Hart and had a pretty nice payout, but I didn't end up cashing it and just kept it going, and he ended up only playing in 41 games, and that's really tough for a top 10 pick in fantasy. But for me, I still think Kaprizov is going to be my number 8 pick in fantasy. So I scroll down here. They have him at rank 13, but I have Kaprizov as my number 8 guy off the board. It's a perfect segue into the next, Kirill Kaprizov. I don't think if you take Kaprizov in the first round, you should look to take Jack Hughes, just because both of them could miss a good portion of the season. You're going to be without your top 2 picks. So for me, it's a little bit risky at pick number 17. Let me jump over to who's available here. Again, none of these guys really, really stand out to me as like very, very strong picks at this round. But for me, I don't even really see his name right now, but it's going to be Filip Forsberg of the Nashville Predators. And with Forsberg, he managed to be healthy last season, still put up 30 goals, 75 points, had very good shot and hit volume, had 150 hits for the first time in his career. So I think he complements Kaprizov well. Both of them have very elite goal upside. Forsberg a little less in terms of the points per game, but you know the shots, you know the hits are going to be there. The only issue is that they're both they're both left wing, so it really handcuffs you. So if you don't want to go Filip Forsberg here, I think your next best option is likely going to be Zach Werenski, Evan Bouchard, or Rasmus Dahlin, and pair a defenseman with that elite forward. The other concern, again, is with Werenski, and the injuries are a little bit concerning. I know he played a full season and was very, very good last year. Like he was the second best defenseman, very close to Makar and very close to winning Norris. I just think the risk is a little bit too much for me, mixing Kaprizov and Werenski together. So for me, it's going to be between Bouchard and Dahlin or Philip Forsberg. So again, Kaprizov, high point, high power play point upside. I think for me, I don't mind the Bouchard pick there. I don't mind the Werenski pick. And then if I scroll down forever, I find Philip Forsberg down here, who should be a pretty solid second round pick. It's just the left wing kind of locks you up a little bit. So for me, I think I'm fine going Bouchard, Dahlin, or Werenski. So for the point of this video, I'll go with the guy that I think should be going here, and it's going to be Evan Bouchard of the Edmonton Oilers, the worst on-ice defenseman in my opinion. That's not very good on ice, but very good for fantasy purposes, as this power play every year is so good, and Bouchard reaps the benefits of such an elite top power play. Jumping back over to the 8th pick now, Kaprizov and Bouchard were our first 2 rounds of picks, and now we're at pick number 32. So Kaprizov, we know a little bit of injury risk, so we want to err on the side of caution at pick number 32. With Bouchard, you kind of know what you're getting. Really good power play point production, one of the highest assists amongst defensemen, and just good shot and block volume overall. So at 32, again, I'm going to jump over to the draft board quickly. The same names kind of pop out to me here because we took a defenseman. We want to be prioritizing forwards at this pick. And I think for me, it's going to be between Tim Stutzel and Tage Thompson. Those are, to me, the 2 most obvious picks, as well as Jake Guentzel. But the issue with Guentzel is he's just left wing eligible, and starting the draft off with a left wing defenseman, left wing, kind of handcuffs you for the rest of your draft. You can't really look to take any more left wingers because of the lack of flexibility. So let's jump over to the draft pick analyzer and kind of assess our options. So it's really close between the 2. Between Stutzel and Tage Thompson, the difference really isn't that significant. The upside with Stutzel is you do get a little bit better of hit volume. He did have quite a bit of a down season last year, but he kind of complements Kaprizov as well with the assist totals. The lack of goals really doesn't concern me too much. You can find goals later in drafts. And Kirill Kaprizov's goal upside is one of the best, if not some of the best, in the entire league. Now, when looking at the points, again, it's really, really close between the 2. So the top team with Stutzel is edged out just slightly by the Tage Thompson draft pick. And then the total here is kind of in favor of the Stutzel side because of that hit volume, giving a little bit more points there. And the power play point upside is a little bit higher than Tage because we know Buffalo's power play isn't really that good. So between these 2 picks, Tage Thompson provides you with some flexibility with the center right wing eligibility. Stutzel, the same thing with center left wing. I think there's no wrong pick between the 2. You can see they're very, very close. If you think Tage has more in the tank this year to get to that 300 shot total, to get to that 45, 50 goal mark, and then if you think Tim Stutzel on the Ottawa Senators with a really good power play last season can kind of have a little bit more of a comeback season, most of the Ottawa studs, other than Jake Sanderson, kind of had a down year in a sense. I still really like both of these picks here. I think they provide you with good flexibility and good upside for the entire season. Okay, so we are past what I would think is the consensus number 8. Top 8 players to go in drafts right now. So you might be wondering, we're at 9, what are we going to do here? And it's not going to be a defenseman. It's going to be another forward here at the 9th overall pick. Now, for me, I know he had a down season. He dealt with injury for a while last year, but there is really no better fantasy stud for categories leagues and points leagues than Brady Tkachuk. And Brady Tkachuk all around is such an elite player. We saw a big down season from him last year, which is actually really surprising given Ottawa had one of the best power plays in the entire league last year. So he managed to just put up 55 points last season, which is, from a point perspective, isn't really attractive, but the shots and hit volume continue to be amongst the best in the league. And that's exactly what you're looking for in your players, because if you own Brady Tkachuk in the past, you know, even on bad nights when he doesn't score a goal, doesn't get an assist, he still manages to somehow put up 6 shots and 6 hits, giving you 12 fantasy points. So that's kind of where I want to be looking at here at pick number 9. I think Brady is one of the safest picks in the first round. No matter what, if he stays healthy, you're going to get over 300 shots, over 220 hits, and then adding to that with the goals and assist upside with Brady Tkachuk this season, I think he's not really at a discount. A lot of people are starting to be on him and know that he's just such a valuable asset for all fantasy teams, because now when you're looking in the 2nd and 3rd round, you don't have to be prioritizing players that get blocks, that get hits, that get shots, because Brady Tkachuk is top 5 in both hits and shots for any forward in the league. So there's a lot to love from Brady here at pick number 9. I took him last year in the FPPL and really didn't have any problem with him. I still think he ended up as a top 10 player, even though he only had 55 points last season. So for me, the number 9 pick here is going to be Brady Tkachuk. I pick number 16 in the draft. So because you took Brady Tkachuk, you have center left wing eligibility, which is very, very nice to see. With Brady Tkachuk, like I mentioned, you're not going to get the point per game upside that you're getting from all the other players within the first round and early second round, but you are getting some of the best counting stats in fantasy. So I did say Quinn Hughes would be a very strong pair with Brady Tkachuk. I think Jack Hughes is also a very elite pairing with Brady Tkachuk. And Jack Hughes does possess a ton of injury downside where he's played 62 games in back-to-back seasons. But on a per game basis, one of the best in the NHL, could easily be a top 10 fantasy pick. The issue is you just don't know how many games played you're going to get from him. And I know on a per game basis is really good. You could start the season off extremely good, and then he goes down with an injury and you have to deal with the second half of your season, which is likely playoffs, with no Jack Hughes, and that becomes a little bit of a concern for me. But I think with having Brady with the elite hit volume and shot volume and mixing that in with Jack Hughes, it's a very, very strong pairing. And the other thing I want to mention is you now get 2 center left wing eligible players, which means you could still look to draft centers later in the draft. You don't have to prioritize finding flexible positions because both of these guys have dual position eligibility. So I really like the Jack Hughes pick at 16 with the upside to finish as easily a top 10 player. He just needs to stay healthy. So at pick number 9, you went Brady Tkachuk, left wing center eligible, Jack Hughes, center left wing eligible. Again, err on the side of caution because Hughes does have some injury risk. But with this pick here, because you went forward, I think you need to be looking at an elite defenseman within the third round. Within the first 3 rounds, you should always be looking to grab at least one top end defenseman. So for this pick here with Brady Tkachuk and Jack Hughes, you get Brady, who's a peripheral god, and Jack Hughes, who on a per game basis is one of the best players in the entire league. So for this reason, I do think that you need to kind of mix in some blocks, and you can get some complementary hits to mix with Brady Tkachuk. And I think if we go look at the projections here and we jump over to defensemen and we show who's best available. So for me, I don't have interest in the first 3 rounds with Fox or Hedman. I think they should be going a little bit later. They just have really high point upside and pretty much no peripherals at all. For me, it's between 2 defensemen. It's going to be between Moritz, Seider and Mackenzie Weegar here. I don't mind Josh Morrissey, but again, I think because the lack of peripherals, you can see 176, 55, 109, just not too enticing for me. I think your best option is going to be between Weegar and Seider, and we'll figure out who the best of the 2 is in the draft analyzer. So comparing the 2 here, this is arguably the closest I've ever seen it since we've done this. So I have Brady and Hughes in here for both, and then Weegar and Seider. And you can see it's really, really, really similar. So the point totals are off by 7, and then the category totals are off by, quick math, 42 plus 6, 48. Hopefully that maths. So they're really, really close between the 2, and I don't think there's a wrong pick between either of them. I think Seider and Weegar both have a really, really good stability and staying healthy, so that kind of helps you to mix in with the Hughes risk and the Brady injury risk as well. Now, I said I wouldn't take Fox or Morrissey. So let's type Fox in here. You can see that these drop pretty significantly compared to Weegar and Seider. Again, the right side is the scoring values. The left side is the points values. So we have everything based on Yahoo standard scoring. If I add in Morrissey in here, again, this gets a little bit closer, but it's still pretty far off versus the others. And the last one was Victor Hedman. So lower than the other couple. So if you don't want to go Weegar and Seider, I think your best bet here is going to be Josh Morrissey to secure your defenseman 1. Again, the category leagues, it's definitely going to be Weegar or Seider because their contributions to the peripheral categories are some of the best in the entire league. So I think your options here are going to be grabbing a defenseman between Weegar, Seider, and Josh Morrissey. Moving on to the 10th overall pick. Now, this is where it kind of gets dicey. So I'm going to show you the draft board a little bit here. I'm going to hide the drafted players. So here's kind of what the draft board looks like. And there's really no standout pick other than one for me. And it's Mikko Rantanen of the Dallas Stars. So not only are you going to be getting a guy that's right wing, left wing eligible, but you're going to get a guy on one of the best teams in the NHL. But there's a lot of discussion around kind of what to predict for Rantanen this season. So the biggest thing for me is that he's not going to be playing those 22 minutes a night, full-time power play one for the Dallas Stars, because Dallas, they kind of spread their offense. They have a really strong top nine, and on their power play, they like to play, and we saw this last year, a power play 1A and a power play 1B. So I'm not entirely sure he's going to be getting the full minute and a half, minute 45, and 2 minutes sometimes when he was in Colorado and playing those massive minutes, basically double shifting for the entire third period. But still, the Dallas Stars are going to be one of, if not the best team in the NHL this season. And I think for Rantanen, it's kind of a no-brainer pick for me here. So he did struggle a bit when he started out with Dallas, 18 points through 20 games, which for Rantanen, I guess is kind of a struggle, not really anything crazy. But we saw in playoffs, he finally got more games under the belt. You have to learn the system on the new team. You have to learn the power play on the new team. There's a lot of changes. You have to build chemistry with your line mates. And once he got into the groove of things, if you watch the playoffs last year of the Dallas Stars, he was far and away the best player for them. He was so dominant. I'm pretty sure he had that hat-trick game when he did pretty much everything himself and ended up winning the series. So a lot to like for Mikko Rantanen this season. I did see some other channels ranking him like past pick number 20. For me, I think it's a no-brainer. First round pick is going to be Mikko Rantanen of the Dallas Stars. So looking at pick 15, I'm going to quickly just jump to it and say I think Quinn Hughes should be going early in the second round, probably as late as David Pastrnak. I think he's the number 2 defenseman in fantasy this season. It's hard to pass up the 15-plus goal, 90-point season from Quinn Hughes. I know he does lack peripherals quite a bit with no hits and no blocks, but the point upside in itself is extremely valuable in fantasy. I think he's a good pairing with Mikko Rantanen. Although Rantanen doesn't provide as many hits, it's still very elite for the point upside for the two of them. Now, if you waited and he ended up going at 16, you get Brady, Tkachuk, and Quinn Hughes, who have very good complementary statistics, given Brady's shot volume is very high. His hit volume is one of the best in the league. And then you get Quinn Hughes, who has above league average for defenseman shot volume and well below league average for the other counting stats for peripherals, and kind of makes up for Brady's points. So with Mikko Rantanen here, I think the best pick available is going to be Quinn Hughes. If not Quinn Hughes, I think I'm fine with Jack Hughes or Philip Forsberg in this range, but it's getting a little dicey because you don't want to be going Kaprizov, Jack Hughes at 17, but I'll talk about it there. So I think for this pick, I'm going to be drafting Quinn Hughes. So at pick number 10, we grabbed Rantanen, left wing, right wing, and then Quinn Hughes as the sole defenseman and your defenseman 1 for your draft. Now that we have these two players, we don't actually have a centerman here, which means we can go and look to draft a centerman at this position at 34 if we want to. So I think the obvious picks for me here, there's two guys that stand out the most. If I were to look at the projections here, where are they? Here are the projections. We look at the available centers. It's going to be between Tage Thompson and Sidney Crosby if you want to go center position. And then if you're looking at the winger, it's going to be just Jake Guentzel at this pick. I think these are the most obvious picks for your fantasy drafts. Those three guys are kind of who I would look to prioritize. We're going to see who, based on our value and our projections, who produces the best value to pair with Rantanen and Quinn Hughes here. Okay, so we're at the draft pick analyzer. We have Rantanen and Hughes both queued in for both, and now we have Guentzel and Crosby here. So as you can see, Crosby slightly edges out Guentzel here, 23-14 and 20-79. So definitely favors Crosby at this pick, and I don't mind it. It's a sole center position. You don't have a centerman yet. Sid is the ageless wonder. It continues to be extremely valuable. So I did mention Tage as the other option here. And if you compare Tage to Sid, it's still Sid favoring. And Sid is a very good contributor to most of the offensive categories. His offense is split, and it's very similar to Rantanen. So you're not really going to lose out on the goal upside. If you look at Tage, he's projected for 41, Sid at 35. Sid out edges him in assists and total points. The shot volume's relatively the same. The hit volume and blocks, the hit and blocks are both in Sid's favor, as well as the power play points. So I don't mind Sid here at pick number 34. I would be surprised if he fell this far. And if he doesn't fall this far, you could look between Tage and Guentzel who again have very, very similar counting stats, and you can't go wrong with either of them. The biggest difference here is Guentzel is going to be much better on the power play. I'm a little bit concerned about Rantanen's power play time on Dallas because they split 1A and 1B, but between the three guys, those are the three I would look at taking at pick number 34. Moving on to the 10th pick in the draft. I'm looking at the board right now. Again, this is kind of where it falls off. And I feel like the end of the draft of the first round picks aren't really as enticing as they were in previous years, where you're able to just go back to back and get really, really good value. But for me here at pick number 11, if I jump over to the projections, it's going to be William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs. So center right wing eligible, which is always a really, really important factor when drafting centermen, is that they have the flexibility to play on your wing because there's so many good centermen in the league right now. So with William Nylander, he's coming off his third 40-goal season in a row. He's good for over 280 shots per year. And there are some people talking about, and I've seen it a lot in the comments in the Discord, about the whole Mitch Marner conundrum with him being gone. Will this team be worse? The good thing about Nylander is he didn't really play with Marner at 5-on-5, and he did play with him on the power play, so I think that may hurt his totals a little bit. But for Nylander, he's such a safe pick. He plays every single game. He scores a ton of goals, over 40 goals, as I mentioned, over the last 3 seasons, with a lot of shot volume. So I think he's going to be leading the offense alongside Austin Matthews this year. We can expect those minutes to be well over 20 plus per night. I can't really see them playing a power play too much, and I think it'll be Nylander taking the bulk of the work with Matthews up front on that top power play unit, playing those big offensive minutes, especially late in games. There's more than likely to see these two pair up. So for me, at the 11th overall pick, it's going to be William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is a toughie here at 14th overall. There's a group of guys that I think could be drafted between here and David Pastrnak in the second round at number 18. So for the 14th pick, it's going to be between two guys. It's between Quinn Hughes and Artemi Panarin. So I think because I like to value defensemen a little bit more, I'm going to lean towards the side of Quinn Hughes, who's on pace for his second 90-point season in a row until he dealt with some injury. He did manage to raise his shot volume slightly. The power play point production's very, very elite on the Vancouver Canucks, and you know he's good for 25 plus minutes. Now, on the other side with Panarin, he's coming off a 49 and then a 37 goal season, put up 89 points in one of his worst seasons as a New York Ranger. If that's a down year for Artemi Panarin, I think there's literally zero risk to drafting him this year. They're going to be a little bit better with Kreider out and JT Miller in on the top power play unit. The team as a whole struggled quite a bit last season. So I think with Nylander at a right wing center position, I'm going to be taking Artemi Panarin at the 14th overall pick. Now, this is way above where his ADP is at. I just think the upside and the floor for Panarin is too difficult to pass up for me here. This is a little bit more of a controversial pick versus, a little bit more of a contrarian pick at 14th overall. I think we could see the draft going a little bit different than this. But for me, it's going to be Artemi Panarin at pick number 14. Moving on to the 11th pick of the draft, William Nylander and Artemi Panarin have been drafted. Pretty much all your positions have been used up, but not in a bad way. You have right wing center with Nylander. You have left wing with Panarin. The problem with both of these guys is they don't really provide any peripherals, and you don't have your number one defenseman yet, which is good because I think the no question pick at pick number 35 here is going to be Moritz Seider to pair perfectly with Nylander and Panarin. Now, if you think he can fall to the next round because you do pick relatively soon at 38, you could skip over him there and grab Tage Thompson as your center position. I don't think I would be looking at Jay Guentzel at this pick just because you already have your sole left wing. And same thing with the next pick is you do have your sole left wing. But let's jump over to the draft analyzer and assess our options. So looking at these two options here, you can see from a categories perspective that the Seider pick really outweighs Tage Thompson because Tage kind of gives you everything you're looking for in terms of your players. He's very similar to the two players you already drafted. You can see here that your hits and your power play points are really lacking. If we compare Seider here, your hits, your blocks, they're very enticing, especially compared to the blocks on this side. But the really big difference if we jump over to the categories is you are edged out quite a bit on goals here. Obviously, you're drafting a defenseman, so that's going to be the thing. The assists aren't too different. The power play points and shots are going to be a little bit slightly edged in the forwards' favor. But the big difference here is just seeing all of the category contributions. Your blocks get into the plus, your PIMs get it closer to the plus, your hits get into the plus, your power play points edge out the Tage Thompson pick. So I think Moritz Seider at 35, he plays every single game. It's actually crazy to see how much he actually plays. I don't think he's missed a game in his last 4 years of the NHL. So with this pick here, I think you should look to grab Moritz Seider as your number 1 defenseman at the end of the 3rd round. For the 12th pick in the draft, for me, it's between 2 players. And that's a good thing, because if you have the 12th pick, you can take these guys back to back and not worry too much about it. So again, if I look at the draft board, this is kind of how things are going right now. If I look at the projections, here's kind of the best available players. I think personally for me, none of these guys in this top group really stand out as who should be going next in the draft. There's one standout player, actually 2 standout players for me, that should be going at 12 and 13. So who I'm looking at these picks here, the first one is going to be Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets, and the second one is going to be Jack Eichel of the Vegas Golden Knights. So for me, I do think at number 12, you should probably be looking at Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. And I'm going to draft him here, and I'm going to leave him on the board. So with Kyle Connor, there's a lot to like here. And this was his second full season, full 82 games in the last 3 years. He did miss some time back in 2023-24, but I do have some of his numbers up. So he put up 1.18 points per game, which was the highest of his career. His 0.5 goals per game was actually what looks to be the 4th highest of his career. So he wasn't even at the highest goal pace of his entire career, and he still managed to put up 41 goals, 97 points, and 267 shots. And the biggest difference that I found here with the Winnipeg Jets last season, and if you watch some of my videos, you've heard me talk about this with Cole Perfetti a little bit, is that their power play finally clicked. They were the best power play in the league last season. Even if we do see some regression, I still think we're in for a really exciting season for Kyle Connor. He plays a ton of minutes, over 20 minutes per night. Again, similar to all these guys in the top group. Very good shot volume, very good power play production, elite goal upside. And I think that's what separates him from Jack Eichel. Not only is he a left wing position, but he also gives you a decent goal upside where Eichel doesn't score those 40 goals a season. We might see it eventually, but with Kyle Connor, you're safe for 35 plus goals, over 250 shots, and a good amount of power play points. So I think for me here, at pick number 12, it's going to be Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. Moving on to the 13th pick in the draft, we have Jack Eichel of the Vegas Golden Knights. I think he's the no question pick at this range. If you can kind of see the groups that's available, like too much injury risk with Jack Hughes. I think Quinn Hughes you can wait on to the middle of the 2nd round, and I'll get into him a little bit later. Reinhart just doesn't have that 90 plus point upside that I'm looking for in the top round. So for me, it's going to be Jack Eichel. I'm going to draft him here. I'm going to jump over to the draft board. So the thing with Eichel is we saw a pretty big decline in his shot rate and his goal volume last season. I don't really know where it came from. The season prior, he had 63 games and 278 shots. And last season, he had 77 games and 233 shots. So his per game shot rate dropped quite a bit. I'm not really sure what led to this, but if he can get back to that 12.9, 13 shots per 60 rate that he was at in the previous season, he could be in line for a really exciting 25-26 year. It's hard to rank a guy in the top 12 that didn't score 30 goals last season, but he did have 31 the season prior, but still managed to put up 66 assists and 94 points. We're now adding Mitch Marner to the mix, like I mentioned in the Nylander bit, an elite offensive player, very good assist totals. So maybe adding the playmaker to that top power play unit will help not only Dorofeyev, but also Jack Eichel quite a bit. And if Marner and Eichel can find that early chemistry, if they decide that they're going to play together in the early going, Eichel could be in line for his first 40-goal season as an NHL player. Again, with Eichel, there is a little bit of injury risk as well. I feel like he's overcome some of the difficulties he's had in Buffalo, but with Vegas here, they should easily be one of the best teams in the NHL. So there's a lot to like from Jack Eichel this season. So we run into a slight problem here. It's not big, but it's slight at pick number 36. And if I look at the defensemen on the board still, there really isn't anything that stands out other than Josh Morrissey here. So you do have back-to-back picks, so I can speak into the 4th round. This is the only pick I will do that for. And for the 4th round, I think it's between 2 guys. It's going to be between Josh Morrissey to give you that number 1 defenseman upside here. I picked number 36. And I think you could go Tage Thompson safely here and go Connor, Eichel, Tage Thompson. But there's another option available. And someone I may be overlooking. You may be saying, how come you haven't talked to him yet? And I don't mind the Clayton Keller pick here as well. So you could go Morrissey Keller, because now you have Kyle Connor with the elite goal upside. You have Eichel and Keller, who are very similar players that put up not a whole lot of goals, but still a really good amount of assists. And Eichel and Connor have really good shot upside to kind of complement Clayton Keller there. So I think here it's going to be between Tage Thompson, Josh Morrissey, and Clayton Keller. Let's jump over to the pick analyzer. So if I'm comparing the two with Clayton Keller in there and with Morrissey down here, you can see that the totals aren't really that different for points leagues. And you can see that for categories, the slight edge goes to to the Clayton Keller side. It's very small. Again, the contributions from the two are relatively similar. Eichel and Keller are basically the same player. All three of these guys are relatively the same, with Connor really taking the cake for the shots on goal. But you get two guys with elite shot volume, Clayton Keller with above average shot volume. The points are all relatively the same, with Eichel likely to progress well beyond the 79 mark this season. We are just factoring a little bit of injury with him as well. But if you were to not go either of these guys and you were to take Tage Thompson here, you can see that it slightly edges out Clayton Keller pick in the points league, but in the category league, the slight edge goes to the Tage Thompson side. So it's very minimal. It really depends on what specifically you think is going to happen between the Utah Mammoth and the Buffalo Sabres. You could probably bet that the Mammoth will be a better offensive team overall this season. But I think at this pick, the best options for you are going to be Clayton Keller, Tage Thompson, or Josh Morrissey. That will do it for the draft strategy video from picks 7 to 12. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.